Hi, this is Andy Hoffman of CryptoGoldCentral.com, which publishes a daily cryptocurrency blog and provides professional crypto consulting to individuals and altcoin developers alike. This week's guest is invaluable to the crypto space in more ways than I can count. From his role as a Bitcoin evangelist, crypto dividend expert, and entrepreneur, he has helped many people, myself included, to become significantly wealthier and happier. That man, of course, is fellow perma-Bitcoin optimist Adam Meister, who, in my view, is one of the global crypto community's most valuable assets. To that end, Adam, welcome to One-on-One.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, and I wasn't going to have a show this week, but I just felt there's just so many weird things going on and no one better to talk to than Adam. So first, I want to thank the international e-magazine Epoch Times, EPOCH, for inviting me to join them as an associate writer publishing weekly articles on macroeconomics, particularly related to the destruction wrought by central banks and what it means to the future of money. As it turns out, the business editor is Valentin Schmidt, who coincidentally appeared with me on a Bitcoin News podcast exactly 1 year ago. All my Epoch Times articles, along with my CGC publications, can be found on my Steemit page and Twitter feed, including my initial article published yesterday, The Cusp of an Historic Yuan Devaluation, which is exactly where I'm going to start today. As instead of going right into Bitcoin, I want to start with the reasons it came to be exactly 10 years ago, yesterday, when Satoshi's white paper was published, which was the destruction of fiat money, not just since the most recent gold standard was abandoned in 1971, but when the Chinese first invented fiat money 1,000 years ago. The 2008 crisis served as the catalyst, and since then, debt has exploded further, as have inflation, wealth inequality, and central bank intervention. Today, nearly every fiat currency is at or near multi-year lows, in many cases all-time lows, including some of the most widely used in the world, like the yuan and rupee. Adam, tell us your thoughts on what brought Bitcoin to be 10 years ago, and what, if anything, central bankers can do to prevent its widespread adoption over the next 10 years.
I think whoever was behind it was tired of some centralized authority dictating how much money was going to be out there and how savings could be inflated away at any moment. And you're talking about China. I mean, that's the complete opposite of Bitcoin. Totally centrally controlled. You don't know what they're going to do next to their fiat over there. For those people who think the yuan is a very important currency, I mean, they could do whatever they want to do with it. Totally, mess with all their people. And that's whoever founded Bitcoin. They wanted to get away from that system where the people were dependent on the government for money. Disconnect government and money. Separation of money and state. I think that's what Satoshi was trying to do back in the day.
Separation of money and state. We'll have to coin that for you as well. You have many sayings that have been coined. But when I think about it, I think about, of all, it's not a coincidence. Goldman Sachs back in the mid-2000s wrote an article saying that the BRICS nations were going to take over the world in the 21st century. The BRICS nations being Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Every one of those five currencies is now trading basically at an all-time low. I guess you could say the Chinese is not yet at an all-time low when you go all the way back to the pre-industrial days. But essentially, all of them are, for different reasons, have been destroyed. And these are the countries that were going to take over the world. And of course, the financial crisis of 2008 showed us that this fiat Ponzi scheme doesn't work. And when you think about, just to put one number to put things into perspective, I think that the U.S. national debt in 2008 was about $9 trillion. And today it's $21 trillion 10 years later, not including, of course, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's $5 trillion of debt, which are held, quote, off balance sheet. So this is the situation we're in. I think it's amazing that we got 10 years down the road. And my God, we're going to talk later on the show about the next 10 years. But next, and probably the reason I had this call in the first place, was I wanted to ask your views, Adam, on the recent Bitcoin apathy, as highlighted by the price declining after it became crystal clear that the latest Tether FUD was just that. As quite obviously, all that actually happened were the financial issues at Bitfinex's banking partner that caused them to switch banks. Yes, the Hoffman line, the $100 billion market cap, we've been above it for more than a year, and it's as strong as ever, as exemplified by what we saw yesterday morning when they tried to walk it down. It just rocketed right back up. However, despite an historically powerful list of tailwinds, the price has failed to lift from its year-long trading range. And yes, the SEC is scheduled to rule on 9 Bitcoin ETFs by Monday, and maybe the backed physical futures product, and then you have the solid X Van Eck Bitcoin application later this year. But the fact is, a lot of these things are well known already, and look where the price is. I think they're discounted as not happening. So Adam, tell us, why do you think Bitcoin has failed to recapture investors' interest despite a record hash rate, surging institutional investment, like this week's Coinbase and Bitstamp transactions, and plunging fiat currencies the world round?
Bitcoin apathy. I like that saying. That's a good one. That explains what is going on here. People don't want to. The masses who have poured into crypto at times, they're waiting for something that is so obvious. You say that everybody knows about the bot and everybody knows about what's coming, and maybe they do, but they're not going to act on it until everyone else acts on it, until there's a story that says it's happened already. And I think there are some smart people out there that have been paying attention closely, and we all know what's down the line. So we have purchased. We're happy, but there are a lot of people who don't have. They can't think that far down the line, or they are pack animals and they need to do what everyone else is doing. Right now, not everyone is pouring into Bitcoin. Right now, the mainstream narrative is nothing's going on with Bitcoin, and so the 80%ers, whatever you want to call them, they're not willing to take a risk and pile into Bitcoin right now.
Adam, right now, no one is buying anything. I mean, the stock market has been a disaster. The bond market has been down. Precious metals certainly haven't gone anywhere. So the fact is, right now, we want to look at it in our world as like, oh, it's Bitcoin, it's crypto. But the fact is, right now, there's not a lot of interest in much of anything.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too. That the masses consider crypto to be just like the other financial instruments that people aren't buying into. So the general trend is no one's buying stocks now. No one's buying bonds. No one's buying anything. So we won't buy crypto either. And it's I guess spilled into crypto. For me, it really doesn't matter. You know, I still have as many Bitcoin as I did before. I know in terms of fiat, the price will go up. It's just a matter of time. And I remember back in the day, you know, the price didn't jump around that much either in 2014 and 15. Of course, it was worth a lot less too, but there will be volatility again. And once it appears, everyone will pile in to enjoy the volatility, I guess, the people who flip it and all that. But right now, since there's no volatility, the people who like to flip, they can't really do it as easy as they have previously done. So, you know, if they want to be bored, they can be bored. For me, it's a very interesting time. And I think people will look back on this one day and say, man, I wish I wasn't bored. I wish I would have taken some action and not thought that everything was so boring, because this is just the quiet before the storm.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing now is, again, we are in our bubble of crypto world where we kind of understand, you know, why it came to be and its use cases around the world. But most people still think of it as an investment. And that's why there's so much of a focus on whether ETFs get approved. And again, like we're talking about here, there's really not a heck of a lot of assets that have been doing well for anyone. I mean, look, the most altcoins are still in a bear market. I mean, Bitcoin bottomed at its $100 billion market cap in February. I mean, it hasn't gone much of anywhere since, and it has lost a lot of people money trying to short it at the lows and buy it at the breakouts. And when you think about the majority of people, look, I mean, look, you see what the volume on the exchanges were. and I certainly saw it in my business. Retail was buying en masse at the end of last year, and the institutions bought en masse at the beginning of last year. They came in January 1st, like I said they would. All the crypto hedge funds had got decimated. So right now, there's the only people who are really sitting on gains are the long-term hodlers, which are, you know, a very small percentage of the world's money. And like you said, most people are just kind of sitting around waiting for a catalyst, completely ignoring the fact that all the things that should be catalysts for Bitcoin are happening.
Yeah, we have it's, as I said, I call it insider information that we have, but everyone could have this insider information if they took the time to listen to some smart people out there. They're talking about the Lightning Network, talking about the financialization of Bitcoin, talking about the 2020 halving. It's all out there, but the market, the players in the market don't do the research, and it isn't factored in yet. They'll learn soon enough.
Yeah, I mean, again, look, if you are solely focused on the financial aspect, I mean, how much more obvious can it be that institutions are piling into this game? I mean, I mean, you could have said 6 months ago that there's a lot of speculation that institutions, and then, you know, one by one, you had some announcements like, well, just the ICE, the backed exchange, you know, Goldman Sachs buying into Poloniex and then buying into BitGo. And all the custodial solutions. Fidelity now just introduced its digital platform. They're going all in, and I mean, and now you have Bitstamp being acquired, and Coinbase valued at $8 billion, and Bitmain is trying to go public, and Bitfury is trying to go public. I mean, the list goes on and on of institutions that are coming into this game, and people are ignoring them. I mean, so maybe they.
Yeah. I mean, people have to think about that. Coinbase is worth $8 billion. People are throwing money at Coinbase. Why would they be doing that? What are these people with a lot of money thinking? They're obviously thinking that cryptocurrency has a tremendously bright future. I mean, it is so blatantly obvious. So the same people who aren't, you know, the individuals out there who are like, well, I don't know, I really need a major announcement to get me to get in now. They're going to look back. They're going to be the same people who are going to be no coiners in the future also. And they're going to be like, oh, it was unfair that the institutions, you know, bought in and I didn't have an opportunity. No, you had the opportunity to do it. And that's, don't be those people of the future. Think about the future, people. Think about what the no coiners will be saying in the future, that the institutions had an unfair advantage. I didn't know. No, you know, there's no.
No, they definitely have an unfair advantage because it's people like us who are the ones that got in ahead of them. We, you know, remember you were talking about it, and I wrote about it way back when about it. It's like getting into Google before it goes public, but the whole world sees it. It's been around for a long time. There's nothing inside information. In fact, most of the institutions were not even allowed to invest in it while we were. Yeah,
that's a good point too, because it wasn't the $100 billion valuation you're referring to, that, you know, some institutions they can't buy in until it's worth a certain amount, until it's a legitimate asset.
And they have to have custodial solutions, which we have with Trezors. They haven't had.
Yeah, that's a great point. And again, all the news about the custodial solutions being figured out right now. I mean, it's all going to get figured out. It's all going to happen. It's all going to happen. They're all going to pile in. And this is people should wake up to this and not end up crying about it in the future. And yes, it's like I said back in 2015, it's like a Facebook or Google IPO for the common man. And had people listened to me back then, they'd really be agreeing with that. Because when back then, it was like $400 or something. I was like, this is your opportunity. It's very early, and it's still early right now.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. Inside information is a good way of putting it, because one, I mean, I talk about this Hoffman line. I mean, I'm talking about for a year. 100 billion is a big deal. We've now been over 100 billion for a year, and it's held through the most horrific declines, the most horrific FUD, with altcoins collapsing, with every manner of negativity. It's never even really, it's approached it for minutes and come back. It's quite obvious there's support here, especially when you read about all these institutions coming in. And again, more inside information. I mean, I gave it to you last year, people, in October. I said I wrote 6,000 to 100 billion the magic numbers. I said institutions will come in at that level. And I also said that January 1st is when all the hedge funds start. I was in the business. They start January, probably 3/4 of all the world's hedge funds start on January 1st. And last year, the only ones that got in were people who were like in the last second, oh, it just went high enough that maybe I could justify. This year, we've had a whole year of all these institutions talking about and investing. We may even have, look, the SolidX VanEck Bitcoin ETF, they set a date of December 29th to approve it. You think there's a coincidence? They're going January 1st. This year's crop of crypto investment is going to be much bigger than last year's. There's some inside information for you. And again, you know, the Coinbase stuff, anyone who has any financial background, which unfortunately very few people do in the sector, will look at and realize they're valuing Coinbase at $8 billion when Bitcoin itself is $110 billion. And again, Coinbase is just a bit player. They are not like some big behemoth. They're just one player, valued at almost 10% of the whole Bitcoin market cap. That's Wall Street telling you that Bitcoin should be worth a lot more. A lot of inside information that people are ignoring right now, waiting for like you said, waiting for the masses.
And again, some people are ignoring it because they get caught up in all the negative FUD. They would rather spend their time reading about drama, negative drama, and that affects them, and they get a negative vibe, and then they're like, oh, they get a negative taste in their mouth about Bitcoin, and then they try to avoid it. Again, that's why you gotta do facts over feelings, people. Facts over feelings. You know, it can be scary when people are saying Tether is going to go to zero. But again, what would that matter to Bitcoin, really, in the end of the day? And, you know, the same people have been yelling about that for quite some time. So think about, you know, what future developments are on the table rather than what rumors about some altcoin are flying around.
Well, Tether's a perfect example because, first of all, Tether's market cap is 1% of the whole crypto market cap. So it wouldn't be a tragedy if it didn't exist. Second of all, most of the exchanges, like if you took Tether away, it would harm altcoins, not necessarily Bitcoin. In fact, it would create a lot of people would leave altcoins and go into Bitcoin. Yeah. So the fact that someone would say, well, if Tether goes, it's bad for Bitcoin. I think it would be bad for altcoins. But think about it. Like I said, nothing happened. Again, look, this Bitfinex guy has been exposed. I was talking about it constantly. He is a very bad guy, and who knows, you know, what his job is to spread FUD. And the fact is that nothing. Look, Bitfinex is a horrible company, and Tether I would never put money into in a million years. But nothing happened. And in fact, while all this Tether FUD was going on, and now it's all dissipated, we're back to basically $1. You know, you had the Gemini coin was launched. The Coinbase US dollar coin was launched and approved as a custodial solution, whatever, by the US government. So again, inside information, people. If you're going to worry about stable coins, you're being ridiculous. Just like if you're going to, you know, worry about ETFs, which certainly have been discounted as not happening, but there's all indications that they're going to happen. So look, next I want to bring up, Adam, you're this week in Bitcoin show that you tirelessly broadcast each Friday. Some shows are more memorable than others, and certainly your show last week was featuring, in my view, one of the top 10 Bitcoiners in the world, Francis Pouliot, and one of the last remaining Bcash supporters, Lorian Gamaroff, and then you have the apolitical trader Ty Zen. I'm being very diplomatic here for myself. Now, I mean, obviously, I viewed Francis as the winner of this exchange by plainly describing why Bitcoin works, why Bcash doesn't, and frankly, why no other crypto could ever challenge Bitcoin's monetary or even transactional properties. You are, like I said, you are a very diplomatic guy, one of the most in crypto, but I'd like to hear your views of the exchange on your show last week and, you know, what came of it.
Well, yeah, when Ty Zen comes on the show, you never know what's going to happen, people. He is, it's always an adventure. So I'll boil it down to this. You know, Francis was throwing out facts about Bitcoin that were not emotional, and Ty and sometimes Lorian were referred to this talking point, which is a really silly talking point, that there's so much infighting. Why can't we all be friends here? Why can't we Why can't we just agree to go our different ways? And this is what's wrong. And this is why people don't want to get into Bitcoin, because there's animosity between Bcash and Bitcoin. No, that is.
I mean, Bcash doesn't even exist as far as I'm concerned, and that's why a guy like Lorian, I don't get it. Does he really actually act like Bcash matters anymore? I literally don't think that anyone is even paying attention to it anymore.
Lorian has built a company around Bcash. He's funded. I mean, so he really does believe that having wallets that you can send Bcash from to buy coffee all over the world is something that the world really needs right now.
But you could buy coffee with Bitcoin. I still don't understand the whole. Bcash is not cheaper and faster. Bcash doesn't even do. No one even uses it. So why would you think that it would be better?
Part of the argument, part of the Bcash argument that's still floating around, which isn't true, is that it's cheaper, it's faster. It's so expensive to send Bitcoin. It's not so expensive, but still that's out there. But again, Lorian has a company, and he does strongly believe that people need to send small amounts in value of cryptocurrency, and it's very important to be able to use. You see, that was a discussion that came up also. What does it mean to actually use a cryptocurrency? Ty and Lorian think it means, to spend it. They're spending over saving. I'm a savings guy over spending. And so if you did ask the bulk of the consumers of the world, what do they want to do? Well, they're consumers. They're 80%ers. They want to spend. But should we be worrying about the mindless zombies that want to buy, go into great debt and buy big screen TVs? Or should we be worrying about or thinking about building a financial base that's deflationary, where people are going to be encouraged to save? Because I don't think Ty and I don't want to put words in their mouth. I don't think they care about how savings has been looked down upon and is not encouraged anymore. And I think we got to go back to basics and stressing the importance of savings, and that's Bitcoin right there. Being a holder of Bitcoin to me is that's using Bitcoin right there. And they would not agree with that. They think we need to be. I mean, and Ty always goes back to that same talking point. I was able to send this so fast back in the day, and then they were able to make a transaction, right? I mean, no, it doesn't. You can still demonstrate Bitcoin by. You can still send it to people. I mean, I don't exactly get that point of his, but again, savings over spending.
He's completely all over the place. I mean, again, I'm trying to be diplomatic. For a guy like me, who's the most undiplomatic person, because I really don't care. I think he's insane. I have no idea what the heck he's talking about. Francis made him look like an idiot, and he can be as bullying as he wants, but he's making absolutely no logical points. Why we're even having this discussion at this point is really just kind of almost killing time during this period of Bitcoin apathy. I mean, for Lorian Gamaroff to say that he's built a company around this, it's been proven that you can't scale on chain. So what's the point of the whole coffee discussion? One, again, why would anyone want to spend, let's say, Bitcoin when it's so cheap? Well, I mean, if you had like Apple stock and you thought Apple stock was going to go up, would you want to spend it? Would you like, oh, can someone create a debit card so I can buy coffee with my Apple stock? No, I mean, it's ridiculous. You buy Bitcoin to save. You believe it's cheap. You believe that it's a new emerging asset that will be worth more. So you save it and you spend your fiat dollars, which you think it's going to replace. I mean, there's no argument in the whole point about, you should spend a cryptocurrency. Why? I mean, I don't even consider almost any of them, aside from Bitcoin, I don't even think they should even have the word currency. They're crypto assets. Bitcoin is the only one that has any monetary properties. I mean, others might have it in time. Maybe Litecoin is a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of it. I'm hoping maybe Rhodium does over time. But basically, Bitcoin is the only one that has monetary properties. And as for transacting it, no, of course you're not going to spend things. It costs time and money to spend your crypto, and no one's asking for it right now. These arguments are all absolutely ridiculous.
There was one other argument that came up there that people should be aware of. Now, Lorian's a friend of mine. And I don't think he meant this in a bad way, but this is might have been something that he heard and now he's repeating. And I think as we get close to the halving, you might start hearing this. He said, you know, Adam, you talk about 2020 so much with the Bitcoin halving. Well, when that happens, the miners, it might not be worth it for the miners to mine Bitcoin anymore because of the 2020 halving. So get ready for that FUD, people. You know, that's some crypto noise that you're going to hear about. That's your future talking point of the anti-Bitcoin crowd. And again, I don't think he meant it in a malicious way. I think he heard it and maybe he thought about it. He thinks it's possible, but you can be sure that some people will be bringing that up in malicious ways. But don't get freaked out by it. It's not true. And have a strong hand and pound that like button, people.
Yes, we're going to talk about the halving in a second. But again, you know, I would talk about how stupid the FUD has been. Like this one the other day, you were talking about your show, and I tweeted about it. That some guy was saying that Bitcoin is going to contribute to global warming, when the fact is that the amount of electricity used by Bitcoin is infinitesimal compared to, like, say, gold mining. I mean, they use like 100 times more energy for gold mining, and no one even needs gold anymore. And forget it, it's replacing banking. That's the whole point. Banking probably uses 200, 300, 400 times more electricity. And now you're saying that someone actually is going to try to create FUD around the halving, as if there's some negative aspect of the halving.
Yeah, I would. Why not? I think around the previous halving, there were fears also. People were throwing out that, well, maybe Bitcoin will break because of this halving. You know, because this is only the second. This is only the second one. We don't know what's really gonna. They won't be able to use that one again. But
yes, that was the only FUD. I remember it. I mean, it's not like it crushed the price, but it was a fear, kind of like the Y2K bug. Like, oh, when we get to that block, is it going to cause Bitcoin to break?
Yeah, that's a good comparison, comparing it to the Y2K bug. But they won't be able to do that this time. People won't spread that kind of FUD. It'll be something like that. It won't be worth the miners' time to mine it anymore, and thus Bitcoin's price will go down. I don't know, something. Yeah, you know, again, you got to have a strong hand and be able to ignore the crypto noise that's going to come up there. But most people are not able to do it. They get scared, and that's right now. That's why people are just talking. There's not that much to talk about. Well, there's a lot to talk about in terms of the future. But in terms of the present, there's just a lot of gossip going around that's FUD based, and people just buy into that stuff. You shouldn't waste your time with it. Learn. There's so many great learning resources out there on YouTube, but they're FUDsters too. And I guess people's natural inclination is to enjoy drama.
Well, it used to be. I mean, as in the last 3 years, including some of the biggest bull runs ever, that FUD was associated with plunges in price. Now we get FUD. It's associated with a flat price. I mean, there's really, I mean, you look at, yes, earlier in the year, we had some FUD that caused the price to go down, but most of it was really just the unwinding of this epic bubble. You had the Mt. Gox trustee, which in the big picture, who cares? The Tether stuff, ETFs, whether they'll get approved or not. I mean, look, remember last year, the whole big thing, China's going to ban Bitcoin. Well, Chinese courts last week said that Bitcoin is legal. So after all of that, China's actually on the side of Bitcoin, and of course Japan and Korea are going forward with it. And that actually was basically a little over a year ago. Jamie Dimon said Bitcoin's a scam. Now he says, I don't give a fuck about Bitcoin. And this is the extent of the FUD that we get. And even when the Tether is going to collapse a couple of $100, no big deal. It's flat pricing during FUD now.
Yeah, that's actually a great observation. But there might be some super FUD that comes out that'll drop the price eventually too. I mean, again, once things get volatile again, it'll be volatile both ways, going up, dropping 1,000 a day, going up 1,000 a day. You know, the future is going to be a wild roller coaster, as I tell people. So we will look back on this time and say, wow, that didn't last long, and that was kind of rare.
Right. Well, at this point, after all we've seen and all that's going on in the macro world, in the crypto world, to believe that there's a super FUD out there that's capable of breaking the Hoffman line, I would say the odds of that are as close to zero as you get. So now I want to discuss on that topic 2019, given how rapidly it's approaching on this November 1st. Last week, we hit the 1-year anniversary of Bitcoin obtaining $100 billion market cap. And January 1st, a new round of crypto hedge funds will be launched. And in May, meaning just what, 5 or 6 months from now, will be just 1 year out from the May 2020 halving. And by the way, 3 months from the August 2019 Litecoin halving. Given these unstoppable events and the potential for so many other events to occur that are not yet written in stone, Adam, what's your best guess for what will likely be the top stories of 2019 in terms of Bitcoin adoption, opposition, and price?
Well, I think the financialization of Bitcoin. I mean, that'll be big. That'll be a big story. I don't, based on the 4 years leading up to the 2016 halving, I don't think there'll be that big of a blast off in terms of dollar price. But I don't know. I mean, we haven't experienced these tremendous financial organizations piling into Bitcoin. I don't know what that is going to, I mean, if you think about it logically, they're going to have to, buy a lot of Bitcoin, which would bring up the fiat price quite a bit. So I don't like to make fiat price predictions. I will say this: the Bitcoin halving, even though we all know about it, and I've been talking about the 2020 halving since the 2016 halving, and I was pumping up the 2016 halving. It's definitely not priced in yet, and I don't think it will be a story in 2019. I don't think the Bitcoin. I think people get distracted by so many other things that it won't come up until right at the beginning of 2020, and maybe at the end of 2019. I don't know. I think the Litecoin halving will wake up a lot of crypto people to what the 2020 halving is, but in terms of the mainstream writing about it, I don't think they're gonna really start caring about it until 2020. It turns 2020, because people might not remember this, but leading up to the 2016 halving, the mainstream media did start to write about it. The term Bitcoin halving was in regular financial mainstream media articles a few months before the 2016 halving. Now, and it was only a few months. It was like 3 months before. This time, yeah, it'll probably like January 1st. People, what to expect in the year 2020, and a lot of the financial mainstream papers will be. They'll start to talk about the Bitcoin halving then. So in terms of 2019, again, the big finance players, some of these exchanges, maybe more will be bought up by big corporations. And in terms of technology, Lightning Network, I think Lightning Network will be a big story, but a lot of people still will not be able to grasp its importance, and that probably won't affect the fiat price very much. But there will be a lot of little companies, individuals making cool things on the Lightning Network, and there could be something. I mean, this will happen eventually. There will be some fun gaming, just something fun that will bring a lot of attention to the Lightning Network.
The killer app, as you said.
Yeah, the killer. They like to say the killer. They like to say the killer app. It'll be I would like to say a popularity app, something that the mainstream will have to write about. But will that affect the price of Bitcoin? It should, but probably not that much. Probably. Again, we're still so filled. The space is so filled with speculators and just people who want to trade it and that really don't care about the technology behind it and stuff. And the second layer, a lot of people can't grasp the second layer solution concept. And there will be some privacy. I think in 2019, privacy will become a bigger issue. And so in terms of cryptocurrency in 2019, I think with these centralized organizations censoring, kicking people off their platforms, there are going to be some cryptocurrency type solutions for social media and web hosting that are going to. Now, will they be legitimate? Will they be long? Will they be able to last? Who knows? But there will be some fight against what we've seen in terms of censorship in 2018, and it'll be coming from the cryptocurrency side in 2019.
Right, and we'll get to that afterwards, including, of course, Steam, which is one of the few cryptos I think has a real legitimate use case. And by the way, people, this is why I love Adam so much. I asked him a very open-ended question, and these were not platitudes. Everything he said right there was very specific, and I would agree 100%. with these things. The financialization, again, look, and we haven't even talked about macro trends. Look, if these currencies continue to fall, at some point people are going to get scared, and you're going to see the use case thing, like in Venezuela and some of the other countries in the world that are dealing with inflation right now, kick in. But just from in terms of, you know, the world as a vacuum right now, financialization it's unfathomably large compared to what we've seen before. We just got a tiny taste of it when people came in, when it first surged last fall, last winter, and now look at all the amount of study and research and investment that's going into it. That's all going to come into play next year. Now that we've been over $100 billion for so long, we even have an altcoin industry, whether you like it or not, that's also $100 billion. And, you know, as you know, Rand Neuner would say, you know, the actual size of the crypto industry is many multiples higher when you actually add up the value of all the companies involved, the 8 billion in Coinbase, et cetera. You know, so financialization is a huge issue, a huge positive issue. And
you know,
yeah.
Oh, I want to say about the making 2019 predictions, because a lot of people are going to start doing that now. What I've learned about predictions is that people make them. They say it's going to happen in 2019. It seems very logical, but it's further down the road. So people have to, you know, some of the things people are predicting, they're going to happen. You brought up something specific that I didn't bring up. There are going to be more countries which currencies are going to be hyperinflated, okay? And the people are going to have to make a decision, you know, how do I fight back against this? But it might not be in 2019. There'll be another Venezuela out there, but it might not be in 2019. But eventually there's going to be a mega Venezuela, okay? There's going to be a mega Venezuela and the people are going to really wake up and buy a lot, and it's going to make a difference in terms of the Bitcoin price and in terms of people understanding the true use case of Bitcoin, you know, protecting your wealth and your savings. But will that happen in 2019? It could. It really could. And when you think about it, it should. Just all these countries printing up money, but it usually takes so much longer than we think. So people be patient.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, I wrote about the yuan yesterday, and of course, I mean, if you live in India, the rupee, you know, the rupee's been falling for many years, but particularly since 2 years ago, it's now the 2-year anniversary of Narendra Modi's cashless society. When, you know, because I was talking about Tai Zen said something about how, you know, currency is fungible, and I'm going, wait, in India it's not fungible. They took all the currency away. I mean, they literally took it away and quote made it cashless. Didn't even tell everyone. They actually confiscated cash from people in the world's second most populous country. And then, of course, in China, we're sitting at close to 25-year lows of pegging it at the whim of a handful of people at the top of the pyramid there, and whether they feel like making, you know, if they want to attack Donald Trump's, you know, tariffs by destroying their own currency for 1.5 billion people. That's mega Venezuela's right there.
It is, but the people haven't found the solution yet. They haven't bought into Bitcoin. The next, again, India should, with everything that you just said, India should be the next Bitcoin hub of the world, and it should have already happened. You know, it should have been the South Korea of this year, but things take longer. People take a long time to wake up, and they act in packs. They won't do it until someone else does it, until the solution is incredibly obvious. So again, India will fall apart one day. I mean, financially, the smart people will get into Bitcoin. I mean, it'll still be India. They'll still be able to exert control over the 80%ers easily, surely. But there will be a big 20% awakening one day in India. We just don't know when that will be. But it'll happen. And that's why you gotta have a strong hand, people. The future is bright. We just don't know when these things are going to happen. So people, you know, 2019 really is just an arbitrary time frame. It's just, you know, the way we define time. But let things play out. Let things play out. They always take longer to play out.
And what I do want to add to, one thing that's not playing out slowly is the financialization. Because, I mean, look, we're going to have all these physical products and custodian products and ETFs next year. There's not a doubt in anyone who knows the space's mind that the financialization, it was the first thing you said when I asked you. I didn't even know what you were going to say, and that was the first thing. It is absolutely going to occur in mass. It doesn't matter whether people in Venezuela or hyper Venezuela are worried about inflation. It's going to happen. So I just want to end this little segment talking about this halving. Now, yes, you can go back and talk about 2016, and the fact that there was talk about it beforehand is kind of miraculous, because back then Bitcoin was worth almost nothing, and we were just, we were barely coming out of the Mount Gox doldrums, and still people were talking about the halving. Now this event, I can't even tell you, because people don't understand what it means. It means half of the supply. So during this quote bear market of an entire year, we have had enough supply to maintain a market cap of over $100 billion for a year. And now you can have all these institutions come into play and all these new mining companies come into play at the same time that we're going to cut the supply in half. I'm talking about half of the supply of Bitcoin all at once. It will be a shocking event to the world. And yes, it's hard, again, it's hard to say when it, quote, will be discounted, especially when, as Adam's talking about, there's so many things that can happen next year that can overshadow it or just make it difficult to discern. But trust me, if there's one thing that's going to get a huge amount of attention, it's going to be the Bitcoin halving of 2020. And I assure you that it will not be ignored until January 1st, when a bunch of people in Forbes start writing about it. It is a big deal, and I do believe that the Litecoin halving of August 2019 is going to awaken people in a big way, because I believe that Litecoin is going to pump in a huge way when we approach that halving.
Interesting. Well, I wouldn't bet on Litecoin pumping in a huge way. Then, I mean, we can disagree about that. But it definitely will wake up the crypto people. But something that you brought up there in terms of the halving, and I just started thinking about it. These big financial, from Fidelity to Goldman Sachs to whoever, who have plans to buy into Bitcoin or buying the crypto, or Bitcoin especially, they do have smart people working for them. If they have already made decisions that they're going to buy into it in a major way, they understand the concept of the halving. So they've got to think, we got it right. The new supply will get cut in half on this day in 2020. So we should really get in before that. So logically, they should be making the tremendous bulk of their purchases, all these well-informed financial organizations, in 2019. I mean, before the word gets out to the rest of the people about, that the new supply will get cut in half soon.
Exactly. So, that's what's going on in every boardroom right now, and especially after January 1st of 2019, when all of that money starts to get deployed and decisions start to be made. And every one of those boardrooms, and whether it's a hedge fund or corporation or a mining company, is going to be looking right at that halving in May 2020. And they're also very well aware of the Litecoin halving of August 2019. Now, finally, I want to get your view of where altcoins stand in your current crypto mosaic. Clearly, you have been one of the sector's leading Bitcoin maximalists, but with an open mind regarding what the ultimate crypto landscape might look like. To that end, Adam, do you see altcoins as just a big group of dot-coms destined to die forever, or do they have a significant role to play in terms of utility and investor opportunity to, in some cases, maybe even outperform Bitcoin, obviously at higher degrees of risk?
Well, they got to come. 90% of them are dot-commers, definitely. I mean, you look at the top 100. I mean, what's the number 87 do differently than the number 26? I mean, their use case is just for traders. When all the guys come piling back in, and it's the coolest thing to do to trade again, yeah, some of them are going to go up irrationally based on rumors quicker than Bitcoin, but you don't know which one is going to be that one, or the 10 that are going to perform better than Bitcoin in February as opposed to perform worse than Bitcoin in every other time of the year. There are, experimenting with privacy, I think is going to be important. Again, there are going to be some problems in the world, and if an altcoin can jump on that problem and use it as a gimmick, hey, we solved this problem, yeah, then it's going to go up in value. People are going to experiment with it. I think if there's someone creates a coin that somehow powers a mechanism that allows people to create their own social media networks that can't be shut down, that that can host their own social media networks. You know, things that deal with the current political environment that can fight back against that. People will pile into that. But again, most of them are useless, and I encourage people to experiment. It's personal responsibility is a new counterculture. I say, if you want to play around with these things and buy them, it's do it. But Bitcoin is, you know, I travel all around the world. They don't talk about the number 26 currency. They ask me about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is synonymous with cryptocurrency, and it's the first one that all the financial organizations out there are messing with. But they have a hierarchy. There is a top tier out there. And I think Caitlin Long even said on my show, you know, after Bitcoin, yeah, then they'll get into Ethereum and Litecoin and some of the others. I mean, look at what Coinbase is doing. What do they sell there now? Ethereum, Litecoin, Bcash. I mean, there is a top tier that is defined. They are, some of them are centrally controlled to a certain extent and have gone out of their ways to associate with the Coinbases of the world and to market themselves. I mean, people don't like Dash. People don't like Dash because it markets itself. But you got to admit that because of that, because they've gone out of their way and they have a system set up where they can spread the word about themselves, it's going to keep them on that top tier and keep them alive and keep them in the conversation. And in the end of the day, you know, we're talking about the financialization of Bitcoin. Well, if these big financial behemoths, they're going to have to, people like to know that, feel like they're diversifying. So a lot of traditional people, they're not going to be comfortable with just having Bitcoin, and they should be, but they're not. So the big financial organizations are going to have to cater to them. They're going to, so they will buy others. They will buy Ethereum and Litecoin and Dash and maybe even Ripple, who knows, to make it seem like they're diverse. Because again, they're going to be holding all these people's private keys, and it'll be a gimmick like, hey, we're not just going to be, you know, you won't just have Bitcoin in your portfolio. Look, you'll have this thing called Litecoin and Ethereum, even though you have no idea what it is. So that there's going to be a top tier. They're going to just serve as filling in these portfolios of people who don't know what the heck they're buying. So there's just a top tier that is just going to be repeated over and over again. I think people are getting a hang of which ones are the top tiers. And where it will be interesting is to see on the privacy coins, which ones will be shunned and which ones won't be. Because when you're talking about traditional financial organizations, and Caitlin Long brought this up, they're going to be scared away of things like Monero. But we've seen Zcash is already accepted by Gemini. Gemini is dealing with Zcash. So it's very interesting to see which ones will be rejected. And you'll have to wonder which ones are really private.
Right. Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, again, every point is spot on. I will say it for the millionth time, the bubble was caused, okay? Yes, there was froth in Bitcoin up until December, but it was mostly because of excitement about SegWit and the winning of the scaling war against Bcash. I mean, that was a real use case victory that brought, and of course, going over $6,000, $100 billion. That, you know, that was, you can call it a bubble, but it was really due to a major plateau, a major change in the world. Like Trace Mayer would say, you know, the Bitcoin pre-SegWit is not worth the same as the Bitcoin post-SegWit. It's a completely different product. But what caused the ultimate bubble earlier in the year was exactly what I said would happen. I said the crypto hedge funds start January 1st. And when they come in there, that's the institution, the wall of institutional money Kelly was talking about, which, by the way, I wrote about a week before Brian Kelly was on your show. I still don't know how you got him on your show. But anyway, when they came in January 1st, even when Bitcoin was already starting to go down, that's what they were doing, diversifying. If you're a hedge fund, people, you have to own other stuff. You can't just say, give me your money and give me and pay me 2 and 20, meaning 2% of the funds and 20% of the profits to buy Bitcoin. You have to diversify. So there is always, the top tier is always going to get huge amounts of money when capital is flowing into the sector. But the one thing, and it's going to happen again, whether the top tier ones are worth it. Back then, You had Bcash, which was still people believed in it. Litecoin, which is, you know, always hanging around. Ethereum, there's questions about it, but it definitely has a lot of support. And then, of course, there's Ripple, which I know I shouldn't be laughing because some people in the next phase are going to believe that a corporate coin is desired by Wall Street. But the fact is that top tier will change, people. I guarantee you that that diversification will happen, but it will change. It doesn't mean that even next year, let alone 5 years from now, the top tier will be Ethereum and Bcash and Ripple and Litecoin. It could be 4 completely different coins, or some of those can increase their dominance. But diversification is the name of the game. And I completely believe, like Adam, that 90% of altcoins, probably more like 95%, are worthless. But there are going to be some that are huge winners, not just because of trading, but because they solve real problems. And Steam is a perfect example of one of those. And like I said, I'm praying that Rhodium does the same, because I have high hopes for it, even though it hasn't been launched yet. But there will be plenty of cryptos that are winners over time, but it may take some time for us to see which ones they are. And a lot of them haven't even been launched yet. So Adam, do you have any last thoughts before I end the show?
Yeah, there could be niche type success, like for some, you know, Steemit, the platform Steemit really caught on. That could create some niche type success for Steam, which would be powering it at that point. But we're a long way from that right now, from Steemit being, you know, tremendously successful on, you know, even a fraction of what Facebook.
Well, that's because Steemit's primary audience is crypto. So I mean, it was on fire last year, and it could get on fire again.
And I do want to say with altcoins, and you're right, it's like 95% of them, or probably 99% of them are completely useless. But, and this is something very important to remember, everyone is still saying, hey, we had our .com bubble already. That's it. We're not going to have a bubble again. Oh no, we haven't had our crypto has not had its .com bubble yet. The true masses have not piled in to crypto yet. You can't buy a crypto on E-Trade yet. It eventually, I mean, all of these, there will be major pumpage in all. There'll be a tremendous altcoin bubble.
Yeah, just wait until Fidelity, when you could buy it on Fidelity, you can just click and buy Bitcoin or Ethereum.
So I mean, you know, Litecoin now is gone below $50. People are worried about it, dude. I remember when Litecoin fell below $2 and everybody was worried about it. It's all cyclical, as I say this a lot. It's cyclical, but we have not experienced the true altcoin bubble yet. They all will come back, and that's not me encouraging you to play in that space, people. It's just people are going to do what they're going to do. They want to have the next Bitcoin, and the more people who find out about Bitcoin, who don't know a thing about crypto yet, they're going to say, well, Bitcoin's worth $10,000. Obviously this penny coin can be worth it, so I'm going to buy a lot of it, and that's going to be compiled upon. So many people are just going to buy into crypto that way, thinking, hey, my coin is the next Bitcoin, but they don't know Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. There'll be another tremendous altcoin bubble, but I warn people, it's not worth your time, because Bitcoin is the one that it survives them all, baby. It's seen them all, and it'll last longer than it is the rock.
It's almost laughable that we talk about them surviving them all, since no one has actually challenged it. I mean, there's been some times where you've had pumps in Ethereum and Bcash and some FUD, but the fact is no coin, including those two, has ever done anything that even remotely challenges Bitcoin, and they won't, because there's cryptocurrency, which is Bitcoin, and then there's the crypto space, which is everything else. So with that, we'll conclude today's extremely informative podcast featuring one of the sector's most inspirational and passionate Bitcoin supporters, Adam Meister. Please check out the Bitcoin Meister YouTube channel for his daily and weekly programming, disruptmeister.com for a full archive of his very lengthy work, and his Twitter handle @TechBalt. As for me, please check out my daily blog at cryptogoldcentral.com. Follow me on Twitter, or contact me about consultations at Hoffman at cryptogoldcentral.com. Thanks very much. Thank you, Adam, and have a great crypto day.
Bye-bye, everyone.